We're outgunned, outmanned, outnumbered and outplanned. Good evening. I forgot to press record. We are outgunned. Anyways. Fuck. Okay, I guess we start again. Oh my god, I'm gonna kill myself. Hi. It's my second Warhammer book time. Today we're talking about Outgunned by Denny Flowers, and, afterwards I'm gonna outgun myself in Minecraft. Okay, so, spoilers, obviously. And like I said in my last video, this is purely based on my opinion, and what I like in what I read, tropes, writing, all that fun stuff, so we're not gonna have the same likes. I'm just reviewing this based off of what I like. The other thing is, once again, still not that versed in Warhammer lore, but I am learning. I'm learning. And I really don't consider knowing myself as knowing something, until I've read it directly from the source. So if I get anything wrong, refer me to a book, please. I would love to read the novel it is in, unless it's like a really big concept spread across a bunch of novels. At that point you can just be like, no, that's just not how it works. We see it in everything, and it's just memes. Which in that point, that's on me for not knowing. But yeah, finally, I always try to be critical of everything I read, whether I like it or not. But even then, you will know if I don't like something. So don't take criticism as me being like, it's bad! I will just say, it's bad. So like I said, my second book I ever read. Honestly, I read this because my brother really, really wanted me to read it. He loves, soldier stories and stories about normal people. So after I finished Watchers of the Throne, he was like, you should read Outgunned next. Or Vulpin Glory. And I was like, well, I'll read Outgunned. So I finished this back in January of 2024, and honestly, I really liked this book. It was a little bit slow for me at the beginning, but I think that's genuinely because of my own reading preferences. I like to start in the middle of action, and when it doesn't start in the middle of action, I want like a quick foray into whatever the hell we're doing. This one, it does give us a little bit of that. It just builds slowly into it. I don't know. I was pretty antsy when I was reading this, from what I remember, so it took me a moment to actually get into it. But honestly, if you're kind of like me, give it a chapter or two. Trust me, it is actually definitely worth it. And like, first things first, before I get into characters, the POV in this book is immaculate. It is first person, once again, but this time, it's the first person of a remembrancer, and it's kind of a little bit journalistic style, I guess I would say, and that just really drives home my own thoughts and feelings about these books being recordings from remembrancers and stuff. It makes my brain so happy. I really liked the POV of this book, and by extension, I loved the main character of this book, Simlik. I loved his character. He was very enjoyable. The way Simlik talked in his POV, and I mean just like his internal monologue, his voice, made it so much fun to read, because it was halfway between a like, oh, you're a little bit brainwashed by the Imperial propaganda, and I'm totally not brainwashed by the Imperial propaganda. I know what's going on. I'm a remembrancer. I make the propaganda. He's literally a propagandist. And part of being a propagandist is he knows just enough to like make the story interesting, but he doesn't know everything. And what I mean by that is, with Space Marine POVs and like Watchers POVs, the mystery came with not knowing the conflict, like who's behind the conflict. With this, the mystery, the conflict comes with, oh, I actually didn't know anything at all about how the world works, which is completely different and equally as compelling to me. And we'll get more into that in just a moment, but honestly, it was so refreshing to read the POV of a normal guy just trying to survive. Like, yeah, he's a remembrancer, but at the end of the day, he's a normal dude. If someone more powerful than your average guardsman sneezed in his direction, my expectation is, oh no, he's going to explode. And that adds just another layer of tension to the story, especially with everything he's dealing with in this. Speaking of everything he's dealing with, homework. I want to bring up homework now, because homework is not necessary at all for this novel. Denny Flowers does an amazing job of introducing all of these concepts of, like, Eldar and orcs and Imperial propaganda, and making it seem just seamless without explanation. It just feels like, oh, over time, I understand exactly what all of this means. It could be that maybe I had a little bit of Warhammer knowledge going in, so I was like, okay, yeah, this is just how the Imperium acts, but it felt so seamless and natural to me that at no point did I feel like, oh, I need to go look this up because I have no fucking clue what's going on. And to go further into that, when Simlic doesn't know something, it's introduced in a way that makes me not want to go look something up, because I want to figure it out for myself. There is a whole Eldar subplot in this, and even to this day, I'm not entirely sure what kind of Eldar they were. I think they were Drakari, but I could be wrong, and now I do want to know. But it's purposeful, you know? I don't expect them to tell me because Simlic doesn't know, and they make it clear that Simlic doesn't know. If I remember correctly, he didn't even fucking know what an Eldar was. Or at least, you know, he knew they were Xenos, I think, but he wasn't entirely convinced he knew what they were. That's the point. On the flip side of that, when he does know something, he goes about it in a very interesting and informative way. I think this book is great orc representation for how orcs appear to the average Imperial, and what makes them scary to the average Imperial. Obviously, probably books like Hell's Reach is great orc rep in that regard, but I think this is really good for a smaller scale, more digestible bit of orc representation, especially if you want to read a non-Space Marine book. Listen, all I knew about orcs before reading this was that they're silly, they're goofy. Orc players come to tabletop games with a bucket full of dice. And then later, when I played Space Marine 1, it really did not help the case that they're silly goofy. But that all matters on POV. When you have a normal fucking person looking at an orc, they're terrifying. They are exactly what they're supposed to be. Daka machines. I will say, though, I really want to read, like, an orc book now, just so I can get the funny, meme-tastic orc POV. I've heard Brutal Cunning is really good, so I have to get on that eventually. Overall, Simlic, his internal monologue, his reaction to everything and how he processes it, it's just really interesting, and I really like him as a character because of it. He's not perfect, and that's the point. He doesn't need to be 100% likable and perfect all the time. I just need him to be enjoyable. Overall, Simlic's internal monologue and reactions, it just makes the world building more digestible, and at the same time builds his character, because I don't know how to describe him. He's like mildly done with the world, a little bit. Girly Pop is yelling outside. Overall, Simlic's like unique internal monologue and reactions to all this information, it never felt like I needed to go look anything up. And it helped build his character. It just made him more enjoyable, and it made the story more enjoyable. I really think POV and Simlic are part of the big reasons that I enjoyed this book so much. I have more to say about characters, especially the one that he's doing the report on, but I'll get to that in the writing section, because I have more to say about them writing-wise than I do reading-wise. Speaking of reading, lore! Every single book you learn lore. It's like a little bit of homework. Why was I so happy when I said that? I think college is changing my brain for the worst. Now, it might be because I'm a first-time reader. It might be that just Warhammer has too much lore. But I feel like this book gave a lot to work with, but in a very digestible way, as I've been saying. Once again, it has been proven to me that Warhammer nobles are just ass. Every time I find a Warhammer noble, they're just dumb. they're just assholes. It was so frustrating. I was like, I'm gonna take this governor and I'm gonna shake them violently and then I'm gonna put them back in their spot. But yeah, if the Warhammer books taught me anything, fuck nobles, they're bad and they should feel bad. The Inquisition. You always hear about how scary the Inquisition is. Like, and I don't mean like, oh, they're gonna get you. I mean like, legitimately scary as a Big Brother organization. But until I read this book, and even after it, I don't entirely get that feeling. Because I guess every time I've seen the Inquisition outside of this, they're not treated that way entirely. Like, two examples right off the top of my head. Space Marine 1. Titus was not scared of the Inquisition when they showed up. He was just, this is fucking ridiculous, and I hate that they're here. In Rogue Trader, the video game, the Inquisition shows up, but, like, they don't feel threatening. Like, I know they're supposed to feel threatening, but I'm just sitting there like, yes, this is politics the entire time. And so on and so forth. Maybe I'm just not reading the right novels, but, like, I didn't really feel like the Inquisition was scary until I read this. And I think it's because it's Simlic having to deal with the Inquisition. You actually get to see, like, a moment of, oh shit, I'm a normal person, and they could make me disappear in just a second without even thinking about it. It legitimately was like a bit, ooh, you're scared, I'm scared, we're all scared, I don't want them here, please leave me alone, I'm sorry for looking too much into things. And the next little thing I wrote down on my list is that orcs can be silly and scary, which I've already said, but I want to say it again. That's it. Finally, everything about servo schools. I don't know what I was expecting servo schools to be before I read this, but I was not expecting what they are. He is my squishy, and I will love him. I want one. That's a little bit fucked up to say, but I want one. And also learning through this, and kind of Rogue Trader, that this is kind of like a high honor. I don't know. It's just really interesting lore. Like, they didn't have to explain it. They could have just been another Mechanicus being fucking bored thing, and they wanted to put servo skulls into existence. Like, they didn't have to explain it, but they did, and they gave them, like, interesting lore. Like, basically, servo skulls retain parts of their, like, personality from their former life. So each single skull we see in this book has their own little unique quirk and thing they like to do. And it's just so cute. And honestly, they were my favorite part of the novel. I'm not even gonna lie. Like, every time I was reading about one, I was just like, oh my god, look at him go! I just want everything good for him! But of course it's Warhammer, so I'm not allowed to have good things, so they all pretty much fucking die. I'll get more into it in a bit, but first things first, we're gonna move on to writing and talk about the action in this book. Because after all, this is a Warhammer book, it's a war story book, and it's an Astra Aeronautica book, technically. Really, honestly, like, if you're gonna have a novel like this, the dogfighting, the actual action within a plane needs to be written well, and oh my god, is it written so well. Like, the dogfights are important, but because we're getting this from Simlic's POV, we get the added treat of someone getting thrown into, like, top G's, out the ass. Have fun, kid. I hope you don't vomit. The description is just amazing. The fighting is just amazing. I loved every action section in this book. It was just so good. And not only were they cool, but they were used to, like, build and establish characters a lot of the times, which is it's just bonus points. Getting to see how a character reacts in an action scene rather than just being like, I did this with my weapon and ducked under him and all that. When we get actual thoughts as they are doing the action, that makes it deeper and richer and just more enjoyable. It doesn't feel flat. It feels dynamic, and I loved it. It's like that in this novel. I'm doing a combo critique for the reading and writing section because it's a big aspect of this novel, so I'll get to it, but I didn't want to include this in it, so I'm going to hit it now. My one minor critique for the actual action in this book is the end fight. It feels like a big stretch what they accomplish, because I don't know. Even if this was my second Warhammer book, I feel like even an ace pilot couldn't pull that off and live. Because she lived. She lived. How do I know? Well, it's quite simple. I own the sequel. She's on the cover. She lived. I actually can't remember if they say whether or not she lived at the end because I read this over a year ago. That's the interesting part of reviewing a book you read a year ago, is you really have to, like, see what actually stuck, which kind of speaks to the writing itself. If you can make me remember most of the plot, your writing was memorable to me, you know? But anyways, it felt like a stretch. I was like, are we sure? It's not in the same vein as Watchers, and it definitely doesn't ruin the story for me, because whereas Watchers was like, that's a lot of coincidences that needs to line up to make that work, this was like, okay, feasible, but you needed to roll like the best of the best pure dumb luck rolls in order to get this outcome, sort of thing. Feasible? Yes. Probable? Cool? It was fucking cool. I'm coming to understand the main character syndrome memes in Warhammer now, because so far, every book I've read, the main character is nigh unstoppable. They are allowed to do the improbable a lot. Does that mean they won't die? No. That just means they'll be able to do the improbable. Anyways, characters in this are great. I've talked a lot about Simlic already, but really, the whole supporting cast is awesome. Whether you hate them or love them, they are fleshed out characters. They feel like fleshed out characters. The fucking butler, just a throwaway side character. He had a personality. He wasn't flat. He wasn't doing just butler things. He was kind of an asshole. He was a bit shifty. They all really felt developed. I cared about even some, like, of the most throwaway side characters just because they were enjoyable to read, which is great. Characters should add life to the world. They should feel like something. They shouldn't just be like, oh yeah, this is my butler Dante, he's going to walk you to your room, and then we never see Dante again, and also he said nothing. They should feel alive, just so that the world feels alive, and they do in this book. And I've talked a lot about Simlic, so let's talk about Von Shard, because Von Shard, as a character in, like, writing, I loved her. She is an absolute asshole. She is pompous, she acts like she is the thing, and it's great. For as much of an ass as she is, I can never actually bring myself to actually hate her, because she's just so interesting and complex, and the little bits of backstory we get about her and her family, it's just so compelling. Like, she has a fucking aunt who is an inquisitor. She has some commissar parents from fuck off nowhere. Like, the whole family is just interesting. They're all these high-ranking imperial officials in some way, and then she is the black sheep of the family. And to have, like, part of the plot is just them trying to make a pick show through Simlic to make her not the black sheep anymore, at least not a disappointment, which is wild to say because she's an Imperial fighter ace. So what kind of stacked laurels does this family have to think that the ace of the Astra Aeronautica is a fucking failure? It's just, she's interesting. I don't want to give too much away because I feel like I could not describe her character with any sort of justice. I just have to say you're gonna have to read the book and read her, because wow. And I'm very excited to read the sequel to see where it goes from there. And finally, the Servo Skulls, I count them as characters because they're little bits of personality, the unexpectedness of them. I feel like they should be slotted into the character story because they all handled situations differently. They all felt just kind of like mute characters. Not pets. They're not like the dog in the story. They feel like, I guess, guides? That's not the right word. I hope you get the point, though. They're close enough to people that, I consider them developed characters. And really, I want one. I want one because I think they would be so cute. If I had a servo skull, I would hold him as such. Finally, there was a mystery in this, and it definitely took the story in a direction I wasn't expecting. It was very interesting. However, this is where the combo criticism kind of comes in. It's not that it doesn't come out of nowhere, but I don't think it was necessary. It was cool to see a noble get comeuppance, but like, it kind of took away from the speed of the plot at times, especially when I cared more about the threat of the orcs than I did about a governor being stupid and corrupt. I honestly, like, I had to be reminded that this plot was a thing, because I completely forgot about it. That's how much I don't think it really mattered in the long run, because if you think about it, if you take it out, if you take out the problems it was causing, it probably wouldn't even change, like, the overall outcome of the story. It might not even change the plot that much, beyond, like, an inquisitor popping in because of it. Not even popping in, just, like, contacting the main character. And honestly, you can make that happen other ways, like, maybe Simlic records or takes note of something about orcs that the Inquisition doesn't want getting out, or, maybe they ask for what he presently got compiled, or they don't even need to ask. It's very clear they don't need to ask. They make that a whole point in the book. But, like, he does something that they don't like. It is so easy to piss off the Inquisition. I don't think it would have been that hard to have her aunt come in and be like, what are you doing? Why are you looking this up? Why are you doing this? So, I don't know. No, not every single Warhammer book does this, but I've noticed that a lot of the Warhammer novels add a mystery to the story. And I don't mean like, oh, a little bit of like, ooh, what's going on there? I'm talking a full mystery that we have to go and investigate. And it's not bad to do this. It's extremely common across the board with books, but it's not always necessary, especially when it kind of slows down the plot a little bit or removes the character from the interesting situation the plot has going on. It's okay to just have it be contained to, like, the antagonist. And I just remembered as I was speaking, technically the story has two mysteries, and the orc one is honestly a bit more interesting because it just kind of it didn't feel like a mystery so much as just like this is an inconvenient thing that they're doing, let's go figure out how they're doing it, whereas the mystery plot in this was a full dedicated mystery that he had to investigate. I guess that's the difference. The difference between slowing down the plot to investigate something and progressing the plot because we have to figure out what the fuck is going on over there. Finally, did I have anything academic to say about this book? No. Though you could definitely apply the first person POV thing I talked about in the first video. So instead of saying something academic, I will instead talk about something that I want from the GW and the authors. The GW proposal. I want a pure horror plot about a Joe Schmo nobody farmer. I don't want a remembrancer, I don't want a guardsman, I want a normal imperial citizen. And I want to put him in a situation. I think the best way to go about this would be to, like, have a planet, an imperial planet, that is slowly falling to the corruption of chaos. Like, I want it so slow that it's unnoticeable. I don't know if this is unrealistic, but at the same time, I think it could work depending on what kind of world you're doing it on. But basically, I want Junji Ito levels of build-up for this plot, okay? I want, like, this dude's neighbor to become he's just a little bit quirky. Not like the chaos, goofy, this man is definitely possessed by Slanesh kind of goofy. I want just I want a new imperial cult, where it's like, oh, they're just a bit quirky about how they worship the emperor, and then it becomes abundantly clear they're not worshiping the emperor, but they don't know it, I know the story will definitely end with him probably dying because he's just a normal dude, but I want to watch him try to survive in a world slowly going mad, and him also slowly going mad. And finally, we can, like, end this on an epilogue of, like, some Inquisitor's POV, like, purging the planet or something of the sort, and just getting to see the not insane person look at the insanity about them, being like, how could it have gotten this far? You know, I just want that. I think it would be very compelling. Also, bonus points if it's written from first POV, or if it's written kind of like journalistic style, where it's us reading the ramblings of a madman as he slowly goes mad. But yeah, that's what I want to see from GW. So with all that said and done, do I recommend this novel? Well, before I get into it, I have something to say to all of the first-time readers, purviewers of Warhammer that might be watching this video. I genuinely don't think there is a good starting book for Warhammer. There are definitely books you should not start with, but outside of those, I don't think there is a good place to jump in. There is so much lore in this setting that it is impossible to be like, this is like something that builds it up. This is a good beginner book, because no matter what you do, you're going to be thrown into it. You're just going to be thrown into it, especially with the more modern novels. I don't know how the older ones are, but also half of them are not canon anymore, and some of them you really should not read. Please do not read anything by Ian Watson. If you want some advice, maybe approach your first novel as its own standalone novel in a standalone series that is not connected to Warhammer at all, that the fandom knows nothing about, you don't know any lore at all. Just approach it like that, and then by the time you're done, if there was anything that caught your attention that you'd like to know more about, do some homework on it. And maybe that interesting thing is going to inspire you or convince you to read a different novel, and you'll jump from there. Because I know that people are like, don't start with the first novel of the Horus Heresy series, which I would kind of agree with. Or don't start with this novel, or like with the last one where I was like, definitely don't start with it because it's the second book in a series. You get the point. No matter what, you're going to be jumping into a whole bunch of verbal soup, even with this. So you just have to be ready to make the plunge. So, having said that, first-time readers, would I recommend Outgunned? Yes, actually, I would, with a little bit of a caveat. If you got to know Warhammer because Space Marines and, like, you want to read about Space Marines, actually, never mind, don't read this book. But if you just want to start reading, I think this novel is completely fine. Even for first-time readers, I don't think too much homework is needed at all, especially if you just approach it as, like, this is the first time this is a brand new book, brand new series, and I don't know all of the answers yet. If you just let yourself enjoy it, I think you will enjoy it. And then afterwards, maybe you do end up doing homework. Maybe you try to figure out whether or not it was Drukhari or Eldari, like I did, and I'm pretty sure it's the Drukhari. For those of you familiar with the Warhammer lore, yeah, read it. I was familiar when I read it. I had a great time. I think you would have a great time too. And that extends to everyone else. Absolutely. Especially if you're into Remembrancers or members of the Imperial Navy, Astra Aeronautica, whatever. I think you will like this book. So all that being said, that's the end. And thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for sitting through this with me. And here's to reading and reviewing my next book without forgetting to record.